Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of Incendiary here on Dojo Kun Comics. With me tonight as co-hosts, I have Jake from TaleEnd Studios, Bionic Bra on your screen. How you doing, Jake?
I'm doing well, man. Glad to be back.
Yeah, Smiling Bandito is with us. And
Hailed and well
in
met.
the last minute. Oh, sorry. And popping in the last minute, we've got Blue Samurai Zero. Thank you for being here too.
Hello.
Our guest tonight is a longtime industry pro. We are excited to have him on, to meet him for the first time in this group anyway. And we will get him on without further ado, says we're going to talk about, his history with the industry, I'm sure. So with us is Rob Hunter. Thanks for being here, Rob.
Hey, it's great to be here, man.
Yeah, we're all very pleased that you had the opportunity to join our show to have this debate and then talk about your IGG campaign, which is in its sign-up phase right now. So there's time for folks to get on board to learn about it before it launches. Before we get to what it's called, do you know when you're launching?
I was originally thinking December, but now just from other professionals' advice, other guys from CG, they're like, dude, just wait till like February. If you can wait till February. And to be honest, I have no problem waiting till February. It just gives me a chance to work on more pages before I have to, even go even heavier with the promotion.
Oh, sure.
So,
well, you know what, Rob? A lot of people talk about December being a tough month to launch because a lot of people are strapped for cash given the holidays. And then also, too, if you wait a couple more months, you have more opportunity to get more signups. As you get on shows like this, more people will see that you've got the campaign running or that it's about to run and get those signups built up so you hit that many more people right when you launch.
Exactly. So when I got that advice, I was just like, oh, well, then I'm definitely going to wait. I'm going to definitely build up the sign up, just like you said. So,
okay, great.
Yeah. And Christmas, because I was just like, initially sign up was starting like the beginning of November. And I'm just like, oh, man, I can't. I was just cringing about thinking about having it go live for Christmas. Because if the project was completely done, that would be different. Like, hey, man, get it right after Christmas. Like we'll be packing and shipping during Christmas or something. That would be different. But to tell people they still got to wait months and months and months, Oh, hello, Cat.
Hey, I'm by to say hi.
What's your cat's name?
Biggs.
Biggs.
Biggs. Cool. It's short for Bigglesworth. It's a Sphinx cat.
Speaking of Biggs, in our chat we have Mr. Mo Biggs. Always a great show if Mo is here. So hail to Mo. In our chat, of course, Bionic Bro, who's also on the panel. We have Snuggy Jr. Always good to see you, Snuggy. Thanks for being here. Let's see who else have we got. Smiling Bandito is in the chat and on the panel. The Link Master, Felix Haas, is with us. Great to see you as well, Felix. Thanks so much. And to all of you who will be watching this on the replay, because we know we're up against some other shows that are streaming right now, we appreciate you.
Always.
Of course. Yes.
That's okay. We hit above our weight.
Right. That happens. Okay, so I'm not
Not that I'm saying you're fat, Dojo.
No.
I'm trying to lose weight. What?
Oh.
Hey, dude, I've lost quite a bit. During COVID, a lot of people put on the pounds, but I think that's because I lost them. So they found all of mine. So that's awesome.
Nice.
I'm not going to steal your thunder this time, Blue. I'm going to let you take it away.
Oh, so are indie comics better than the mainstream? We'll put this in any aspect you wish. So are they better than the mainstream to work in indie versus the end product quality? You can pick your aspects that you want to do, but are indie comics better than the mainstream? That's where we're going.
Okay. And you want me to pick which side right now? What I think?
We'll see how it goes is you decide which side of the debate you want to be on, and then you get to choose one of us to be on your team.
Okay. Whether we like it or not.
Yeah, whether we like it or not. And then you choose the two others that you want to go head to head with, and then last man standing will be the mediator.
Okay. I'm going to go with indie comics are better than mainstream.
Awesome.
So
Rob Hunter has chosen as indie comics are better, but who will he choose as his partner to debate?
Whom?
I'm gonna go with Dojo.
All right.
It is Dojo and Rob versus
Who are your opponents?
But the only. Oh wait, you didn't pick a moderator. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead.
Oh, should I pick moderator and then it's obvious? Then the other two.
You can do it that
there
way.
you go,
Yeah.
that makes
I'll
it
pick
way
Blue
easier.
Samurai is the moderator.
Oh.
So then we're going up to Bionic and Smiling.
Can we-
Did I just screw everything up?
No,
not
man.
at all.
No, I heard a heavy
Blue really
sigh from
wanted to
Blue. I think
argue.
he was ready for this.
I'm never sure exactly how to moderate because I don't want to yell over people.
You know what, though? Last time, Blue, I think the way you handled it was great because you helped us prevent.
Okay,
talking over each
sucking
other.
up to the moderator is not part of the
Yeah,
show.
yeah.
Oh my
At all.
goodness.
Here come the brownie points.
It's not going to help your case.
That's okay, Jake. We
Bandito?
don't need brownie points.
Bandito, this is for you.
Stop being so defensive.
Oh, damn.
It's my job.
Okay, so what we do then, Rob, is we give the guests the opportunity to start us off, and then we'll come in as Blue helps us.
All right,
Okay.
Rob. Oh, sorry. I thought start off with a question. Did I screw that up?
No, go ahead.
Rob, because you're starting us off, I thought I'm supposed to ask. What's the primary way that you believe that indie comics are better than mainstream?
Okay, the best way I can answer this is from my experience, like almost 30 years in mainstream comics. And that's when I look back at the type of comic books, like everybody has their favorite run in comics. See, Cat does too. Yeah, is that I look back and like this is like the whole time I'd go, like when Hush came out or Todd McFarlane's run on Amazing Spider-Man or his run on Incredible Hulk, I would look at that and go, that's why I got into comics. I want to work on a run or a project like that. And after 30 years, I realized that no matter how hard you work on things, that may never come because of the way that the product is handled in mainstream with the editors. And unfortunately, a lot of time, my perspective was that it was a timing thing. Now I know that's, you can't just, create what's going to be the biggest, the next hit. Otherwise they would just constantly make big hits and go, oh, look at, every project is, a bigger hit than the last. But there's a lot of things, there's a lot of commonalities to the projects that are big hits. And you see that they specifically don't do those for whatever reason. A lot of it might be scheduling the artists, scheduling the writers. I've learned over 30 years, a big part of it is just the editorial or the people above them won't let the creators do what they want. They really hold them back on the stories. For instance, Hush, the whole time Hush was breaking records at DC for sales, they still couldn't decide the Jason Todd type stuff. Is it going to be Jason Todd? Who's, the whole Robin, the dead Robin, is he dead? All that stuff at the end of the Hush story. They couldn't make a decision and they kept changing their mind over and over again. Even though Hush sold more every issue, was a monster hit and really, pulled DC out of kind of a tailspin, they still couldn't make any decisions on that. So just from that perspective, indies being smaller, usually it's maybe it's a couple creators on one book, maybe it's just one creator, they can do exactly what they want to do. Now they're limited by resources, but sometimes being limited by resources gives you an opportunity to be more clever than you would. Like you can't hire a colorist, so you can't hire the colorist that you think you want, and you hire someone else, but then that synergy ends up being something that you would have never expected. So that really is my take why indie is bigger than mainstream, or better than mainstream.
Okay, so if I hear you correctly, the bits I pulled out of that was it's better because the editors in mainstream are there for certain purposes, whatever the list is, that prevent you from being as creative as you could be primarily.
Yeah, I would see that as whether it's the company's policy or now they're so worried about continuity, it really holds up the creators. It really forces them to have to write in a box. Jeff Loeb has said in multiple interviews that he would write his comic book plots 3 times. the plot he wanted, the plot the editor wanted, and then the final plot what they could agree on. So I mean that's really rough when it comes to creating projects, especially if it's original material or even ideas that you wouldn't expect maybe Batman or whoever would be working on. It makes it just compromised city, and I think that's what we're seeing right now for like probably the last 5 to 10 years in Marvel and DC. Writers don't want to compromise. They don't want to go through the hassle. So they just write whatever would be the easiest that the editor will approve. And, you get a lot of mediocrity and just books get finished that way. So.
Okay. So, Jake, what do you think is the primary reason that the mainstream Big Two is better than indies? I can't come up with words. I'm sorry.
You're fine. Hey, usually I'm the one who's less articulate. So
I just wrestled 6 people and almost got choked out by a 6-year-old. I'm not kidding. I let him get on my neck, and then I lifted. So I'm a little worn right now.
That's perfect. Good. I win. We win, Dojo. That was
no fair. Blue was already beaten up by a 6-year-old.
I'm sorry. So Jake, what's your reason for believing artificially or genuinely that the mainstream are better?
Remains to be seen, but no. So the only argument that I need is that the mainstream is what influenced all of us to create our own.
Oh, I like it. I like it.
That's true.
I mean, you're going to see heavy influence. Well, maybe not even heavy, but you're going to see influences from books that everybody's read on their own time, that they delved into, that they cherished and cared for growing up. And there's going to be some resemblance of that in everyone's stories. What captured them? What about those characters captured them? And what kind of twists and turns they can, make in their own stories to, make it more unique or make it fresh and whatnot. But I will give that when it comes to the creative side, indie comics is definitely where it's at, because you're not being pigeonholed in one spot to write a certain way or to a demographic that might not even, buy the book by the end of it going out. And so, yeah, indie comics has it there. But when it comes to why mainstream is so big and why it keeps, raking in the dough, is because we all grew up on it. It is the nostalgia bait that will last forever. It's always going to hit that big S emblem on that chest. You're going to know that somebody's going to come to save you every single time. You're not going to know that with somebody that's, over here on not as quickly anyway. You're not going to see that as it's not going to be as prominent on the indie scene at this time. Because we still are, as we say, we're creators, but we're not as well known yet. So we have to get that projection to get to where they are. Now, down the line, will we be able to get there? Hell yeah! I believe that we can. I mean, EVS has shown that. Eric July has shown that. And many others within the indie circuit are showing that as they keep doing their stuff. But when it comes to why mainstream is better, it's because it influenced us so much to create our own.
You people just don't stop with the fake news, do you?
I am going to have to speak up and refute that without Blue's prompting. So here's my take on that. A couple of things you said did hit a good note, and that is that we all grew up on these things. This is what prompted our interest. It was our escapism entertainment right from the get-go when we were kids, perhaps, maybe as young adults. But here's the thing. Indie comics now have much more consideration for the fan base. We are the original fan base. I'm going to say I'm an OG from the 1960s even. So my point is this. There was a time where there was a golden age of writing and art in synergy in comic books, and that is long past in the mainstream, in my opinion. They pander to a very vocal minority. They are, hitting all of their checkpoints to get their ESG dollars, and they just don't care about the fans anymore. The fact is, they're not, I'm sorry, Jake, they're not raking in the dough anymore. Comic book sales from the mainstream has been dwindling year over year, and that's largely because the fans understand that they don't care anymore. The canon, the storylines that we grew up with, they've destroyed them. They don't have any respect for the storylines that came before, and maybe even less respect for the writers and artists that came before.
Okay.
You're mentioning that respect for what came before because of continuity. Let's see. Who's Bandito? Thank you. Bandito, since that's what's come before seems to matter, with both Rob mentioning continuity getting in the way, and now we have Dojo Kun mentioning that there are people not respecting what came before. What are the good points you would say where continuity matters before we apply that to the mainstream? Just continuity in general.
Okay, so I can answer that question, and then I got my own point to make as well.
Okay.
So as far as continuity goes, I think it is dependent upon what the audience needs at the time that the character is being written. And we do end up seeing some continuity that goes down dark places that unfortunately didn't hit the mark with readers, and we see the disastrous effects of that. And because continuity is so important, that's why the mainstream, that's why it shows how valuable those stories are, right? It shows how much people require the characters to maintain a certain sense of whatever that story that came before it was. It's connected to some sort of piece of their soul that they need to make sure continues forward. And the mainstream is ultimately responsible for all of that. Now, today's comics might not be reflecting how important that continuity is, but we're talking about a watermark that's coming down, while indie comics is a watermark that's going up. And mainstream has a long ways to go before it's totally destroyed everything of its fan base. And everything new that they create is, designed to bring in new fans. Now, what those numbers are is debatable. I would say that they're probably losing fans more than they are gaining fans. But again, this is a high watermark that's coming down, as opposed to, indie comics trying to even get up to that watermark.
That's not really happening at all.
And to counter Dojo there, who's got his control over the buttons, the measure of it is the death of Superman. The death of Superman proved once and for all that comics isn't simply a bunch of nerds sitting in their basements, reading books about superheroes. It was a global event. There was in Japan. It was a news show, or there was news shows in Japan, in Sweden, in all across Europe, and all through North America, Brazil, everywhere was talking about the death of Superman. There is never going to be an indie comic that ever matches that. So mainstream comics is mainstream comics is a water level that's coming down. The indie comic scene is a water level that's trying to come up. And so even if there are significant indie comics out there, like obviously Saga made huge waves out there, The Walking Dead, right? But now The Walking Dead, the TV series ended, and it was some of the lowest ratings. Like there's seasons that had higher ratings than the ending of The Walking Dead.
Wow.
Right? So there's never going to be anything that hits the levels of what the mainstream comics has done.
So it's starting to sound like we're talking about two different animals. So when we take continuity into account for the mainstream comics, and that's what's in the way.
I think they're doing a poor job of it,
Okay.
but it's still a watermark coming down as opposed to. And actually, on the flip side of it, indie comics, we don't have the years behind us to have continuity, so there isn't anything like you can't say, okay, so and so's put out 5 books, check out the continuity. Until we get to 100 issues or 50 issues at least, we can't use that as a measure. I think for indie comics.
Mm-hmm. All right. So
I think
what
Aldous
else?
has a great point here. In 1982, you could say the same thing and be completely wrong about Eastman and Laird's TMNT.
Yeah, actually, but that's the exception to the rule, and the exception actually usually proves the rule more than what the one example can do.
Well, each of us are trying to be that exception to the rule, and
100%.
everybody is hoping to strike gold, to be that one diamond in the rough that becomes the next TMNT. Invincible, which was widely well received. Paper Girls even was critically acclaimed. So yeah, there's an awful lot of possibly indies that can strike that iron.
But Bandito, you literally just said it would never happen.
Yeah, you're 100% right. There's an exception to the rule. I completely concede the point, but the exception does not prove the rule.
Right.
In fact, it does
for that one exception to happen, that means the rest of us are going to have to bite the bullet.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's the fourth standard deviation out there is the exception. So, and I know.
I
don't even literally know that you just said that. I know that because I got confused and then I read the screen thanks to Aldous.
Well, the Turtles are always going to be an exception to almost every rule because wasn't the comic book like languishing? Like the creators were like, we don't know what to do with this or where to go with this, and they literally it was all about timing because then they met the third partner who's going to shop the Turtles around a Hasbro, and Hasbro was at that same time were desperate for properties.
Yeah,
so
perfect storm.
Yeah, exactly.
And actually, if it wasn't for them, they probably wouldn't have become as marketable as they could because they were the ones that said you have to make them different colors, otherwise grandmas can't buy the toys for their kids.
Well, I thought that was the cartoon who said we can't tell the difference between the Turtles.
Oh, maybe, yeah. It was the cartoon. Yeah. It was, but that was all part of the same thing. They made the cartoon to sell the toys, right?
Yes, so it's that weird, like, what the Turtles turned into wasn't really what the Turtles was in the comic book.
And basically it's because of grandmas that the Turtles became popular.
Mm-hmm. A cartoon / action figure marketing, and had more to do with Turtles than the actual comic book where it all started.
When the comic book came out, I actually saw it on the shelf and realized that it was a spoof of the X-Men and the Teen Titans, and maybe even not maybe,
Daredevil.
but definitely Daredevil too. Right?
Yeah.
Bandito's got it. So I saw that as a spoof, and I'm not a big fan of spoofs and parodies. Sorry, Don Chin, if you're watching this. So
I worked for him for a little while.
Did you? So I passed it by, and now, of course, I kick myself all the time.
I think Aldous has something. Before I ask Rob a question, I think Aldous has something good here. Only the indies will justify continued failure by citing the success of indie properties. And that's kind of like only the indies are where somebody can be so wrapped up in their own idea. No offense, Rob, that they don't listen to critique, they don't take guidance, and they don't look at their thing to say, why is mine failing when maybe I need to make some alterations so it quits failing, whether that's marketing or the substance, or if you just have unlikable characters or whatnot. But anyway, Rob, we've talked about how editors get in the way, and one of the ways they get in there is continuity. Where does continuity play a role? I'm sorry, I just mixed up my question. Now I can't ask. I'm so brain dead today. Anyway, moving away from just continuity, where else do editors get in the way of? Oh, I'm sorry. I remember the question. Continuity is one agenda. We've seen a lot of editors in the mainstream with agendas that have nothing to do with books or stories themselves. How else besides those two, unless you want to dive in on the second one a little bit, can editors get in the way of creativity?
I just quickly, the continuity. I don't see that as a huge problem in comic books. Like, as long as you just don't write, oh, this is Colossus's first meeting of Juggernaut, when all the fans know that they fought like 60 times or something. Like, that kind of continuity is like, well, duh, don't make those mistakes. But consistency, I would say consistency of the character, whether it's indie or mainstream, that's really what should be more important. I did a run on Justice League with Mark Bagley, and they literally told us, like, they had promised, like, one of the reasons Mark even went to DC was because he was promised he could work on Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman, the big three. And we got to do a cover on Justice League of Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman. And their answer to why we couldn't was because they were involved in their own stories. And it's just like, well, one, this is comic books. Two, you're talking about two of the most popular and powerful characters. You can't see them in the Justice League on the weekends. Like,
no
answer,
touchy.
Yeah, the answers were just draw your pages, don't question anything, is really how they answered. They gave Mark the answer. And I think Mark at that time, because he did the big project with Kurt Busiek and that didn't really go through, I think almost he was kind of like, well, my contract is up in 6 months, or I really think he was in that, well, I'm not signing a new contract, is how he felt about that whole scenario. And someone who maybe if they had a longer contract would have said, give me a break. Superman can't be in almost two places at the same time. How many times have we seen that in stories? Don't give me that little crap. Just give me Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman. Like, Batman's dead, so we had Nightwing as Batman. So I would literally be like, hey man, I'm drawing the book. Give me Wonder Woman, and Superman. I don't care what the excuses are. That's why you have a writer to explain why they're in, and people go, hey, what are they doing in this book? You just be like, okay, dude, do your job. Write a great reason why they're in this book, and let's move on from there.
When I used to read the solo comic books, let's say Green Lantern as an example, and his opponent, I don't know, Parallax, is about to destroy the Earth. I always used to wonder, why doesn't he call, Clark? Why doesn't he call Diana? Why is he trying to handle this all on his own? But then
because the writers are busy with him.
Yeah, right. But
else.
I would sit back and think to myself, well, then every book would be the Justice League.
Yeah.
What I mean?
Why is Green Lantern? He can be surprised all the time, even though his ring is so supposed to be so powerful. But at the last second, the ring will automatically put up the force field to save him so he doesn't die. And I was always like, if the ring is that sophisticated, why doesn't the ring have like an automatic attack mode? So Green Lantern doesn't get constantly surprised. Like, every issue, that's the only way you can defeat him, is he's either surprised or, oh, look, someone's making it through my, the giant fist that he made. Or you're just like, dude, you've already had precedence that the ring is like a living computer almost. Why isn't the ring like taking effect of some of these things, like like the automatic pilot on a plane, or
Dude, you just came up with the new comics. You just came up with Green Lantern sentience.
Yeah, the living ring. Yeah,
the nebulous years. Yeah.
There we go.
I used to like it when I started reading X-Men in the 90s, and it would just say, I'd wonder, where is Wolverine? And then there'd be a footnote somewhere relevant to just say, by the way, he's over in Latvia this month, or this week, whatever the time frame in the story was this week. And it's because he had a four-part standalone going on, and then you think, oh, so we're gonna have 4 issues without him? No, they had 1 issue without him to make the stories mesh together for continuity's sake, not he's gone for months because he has his own title. It wasn't all 4. So it just sounds like they were doing a really poor job of nuance, of giving you nuance on that over at DC.
Anyway. Or what Colossus and all those Uncanny X-Men, 1 issue he can barely pick up a car. The next issue, he's going toe to toe with Juggernaut. And then the third issue, he's, oh, Colossus gets punched and we don't see him for the rest of the comic book because Claremont wants to focus on how much cooler Rogue is. So, that's the one thing, my pet peeve as a fan, and even now working in the field, is like, dude, just be creative. Not be creative. Like, if you don't do the easy solution every time, and be consistent. Like, this dude is this strong. You've already set him up as being X amount of strength. Just go with that and just go, well, then I'm going to have to bring in a stronger or a more powerful villain. It's the same with Superman. People are always like, well, Superman's boring because, he's Superman. You're like, dude, that's the perfect reason to bring in more powerful villains. Like, this really should be, the Superman book should be, look at all these awesome new, really powerful villains to go up against Superman. It shouldn't be, well, we don't know what to do with Superman, so we're going to have Jimmy Olsen pages. He'd be like, are you shitting me? Jimmy Olsen? Or more Lois Lane? It's like, oh, there's a writer trying to get a CW gig. It has nothing to do with him actually wanting to write Superman. He wants to practice his dialogue.
When I think of the rogues gallery that Superman has, I'm actually pretty disappointed. I mean, he's got some big hitters. One, though, is his rogues gallery, the biggest hitter because of his intellect, which, of course, is Lex. But then if you think about the big hitters as far as, facing him toe-to-toe, you've got Parasite, Bizarro. But I mean, his rogues gallery pales in comparison to Spider-Man's, Batman's, The Flash. And that's really a shame. And I think that's largely because the writers didn't know how to create villain that would pose a threat to somebody that they set up with godlike powers. How did Toyman become one of Superman's rogues gallery, for example?
And nowadays, why would you want to come up with awesome villains when here's your $5,000 check, thanks, the movie made $800 million. Right. So that's why you see none of that. At least now there's an excuse. Before, I think it was just editorial, or the writer's just like, dude, I'm writing 3 books. Just give me which characters are available. I'll just write one of these or come up with a really bland whatever for 2 issues.
I do have a question for you, especially when comparing mainstream and indie. As you're coming over and you've had to be working on, monthly books for your whole career, are you looking at creating an ongoing series, or do you have you're trying to create oh my goodness, I can't think of the word, but these projects of passion that kind of are self-contained, that are kind of bigger than what a mainstream story would be doing?
Well, for my first launch, it's Deth Raider, and I've already on the sign-up page, I already just kind of hint at, because I call it the Death Verse. So I already have a bunch of other characters and other ideas, and I even have, I don't want to talk about it just yet, but if as long as Deth Raider does, I have a decent launch with it. There are other there's fantastic aspects that I really love about Comicsgate and the crowdfunding. One of the downsides I see to it is, just from a fan perspective, is buying something and then having to wait an entire year. So I see a lot of things that are already set up where there's a way of bringing parts of the project, or installments throughout the year to the consumer, and then the printed copy shows up whenever it's supposed to show up, if it's a year or if it's 8 months or whatever.
I feel like oh, sorry, go for it.
I was going to say that could be a way of kind of bridging that gap of for me, of it's more ongoing, or projects that feel more ongoing. But I don't see, because I think I kind of answered it and didn't answer it. I don't see like doing, because my first project is 100 pages. I don't see doing a 100-page story and going, well, that was fun, now I'm going to go do a Western, or I'm going to go do a Viking story. I have those ideas, but if Deth Raider, if everybody likes Deth Raider, then there'll be a Deth Raider 2.
ongoing.
The way that the story set up, it's perfectly set up to introduce and open up the other ideas and the other characters, along with more Deth Raider in there. So it would just be once a year connecting, like sequels, like movies, sequels to that. Yeah, I don't see. I mean, now you can look at like Eric July and the success he's had. I mean, I would have a hard time if I had a success like that, not going, well, okay, here comes Deth Raider, and also here comes a Viking book, and here comes a Western. I'll just hire other people to draw it. You know what I mean?
I know. When you have the resources like that, it's just like, okay, well, now we're ready to go. How do I pump
the
these out?
universe will unfold.
And you know what happens when you do that? You become Wildstorm. Where, do you remember all the things that were supposed to come out through Wildstorm and didn't come out back in the Image days? There's a point where they're asking the UPS guy if he wanted to learn how to ink. How much did he make learn to ink? Because they just didn't have the people.
There are some people in the indies who are doing that, like Vinny Tartamella and Art Tiber, where they're ping-ponging between different titles and different genres. And the thing that makes them able to do that is, one, they know how to complete a story. It's not just a sequence of plot points, but it's story within a volume, regardless of the to be continued at the end. So Vinny's Shadow the Kraken book, blatantly a cliffhanger to be continued, but there's still a story contained in it before that last page. And that's how they handle it, is you can get away with ping-ponging if you just put out larger volumes and give, when I say larger, I mean like 48 pages, to give people some kind of completion in there, rather than you can't do that if you're only putting out a floppy every 9 months, or like real extended like that.
Oh yeah, well that's why I'm doing 100 pages. So it literally is. It's like 5 or 6 months of standard comic book reading in the one book. So it is set up a lot like it would be a ongoing series, from a story point of view.
We are definitely going to bring up your campaign, Rob. But before we did, I wanted to ask Aldous if this was intentional. It's a Brainiac rather than a Brainiac.
That would be the brand new Brainiac.
I think he's, paying me a compliment, maybe unintentionally, because I am Brian.
Or he's calling you one of Superman's villains. I didn't know. It's not a sentence, so I didn't know what all it meant. Right, okay, before we run away to the campaign, Jake. All right, there are aspects of the mainstream that would lend towards it actually being quote unquote better in some way than the indies. What do you think those aspects are?
Okay. And before we get back into it, I need to reiterate that we are just playing devil's advocacy, and in no way do I actually hold these beliefs that I am arguing.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, this is going to be hard.
You coward. You coward. Stand behind your words.
Sorry, man. There's no way. I already feel like I got a red on the back of my head. But I would say resources and power to move those resources.
Okay.
So when it comes to, perfect example is when Todd McFarlane was starting up Image, he would hire a bunch of artists and he would pay them outright before any work was done, right? And whoever the artists were that he hired, they would go out and party and come back. They wouldn't have any money, but there would be no pages done. So, it's kind of like that way on the indie scene too. If you're not doing contracts and everything, it's just by trust and trying to work with each other and stuff like that. So when it comes to resources, I think mainstream definitely has a hold on it there, because we need to somehow find kind of what would you say? I guess sand away at the issues when it comes to resources like that. But and another part is the power to actually keep those resources within your grasp, or at least on the projects when it's needed to be completed.
Yeah, there's a lot of people working in the office to do all the things that are needed to keep a project going. A lot of people who know what they're doing. So mainstream has that, in spades. So I agree with that. I
Okay,
also agree that the greed of the corporation will keep a project and brands alive. Like Todd McFarlane is kind of the exception. I mean, if I made $10 million in 2 years on projects, could I guarantee that I'd be back in the third year? Or would I just go, hey, that was awesome. I hope everybody liked the books. Thank you for the $10 million. You know what I mean? Like everybody got their books. Everybody got the stuff that I promised. I'm sitting on $10 million. Would I even be interested in going, well, what are we doing next, Rob? Who are we going to expand, or are you going to just go, well, that was fun. That was awesome. I think I'm going to watch Netflix and then retire. A corporation would never do that. A corporation would be like, oh, wow, we need to expand. Everybody liked that project. You know, it sold $5 million worth of product. Why don't we do two versions of this character? Or, you know, that is something that the mainstream will always have. They'll have this giant corporation that always wants to make more money and, you know, keep producing. Art Tieber actually brought that up with George Lucas and Disney. You know, George Lucas is a perfect example of, you know, he was a billionaire before the Disney deal. And we saw how many movies came out when he doesn't really need to make money, you know. But if he sells it to Disney, now Star Wars, whether they did a good job with it or not, Star Wars is immortal. You know, Disney will keep making Star Wars projects and toys and everything else, you know, as long as they can do a good job. They'll do it for the next 100 years because it's a corporation and they spent billions to buy Star Wars. So there is a positive, a big positive to a corporation buying brands, because you know that they're gonna always keep them going. If I have $10 million, am I going to answer the T-shirt guy back? You know, versus yeah, but Marvel, the T-shirt guy says, "Hey, I want to license all your Spider-Man stuff," and I see your license is over, or we haven't seen Spider-Man T-shirts in a couple of years. You know, there's a guy that's his friggin' job. You know, he's answering him back because, you know, he's in merchandising, he's in marketing. So, and here's a tangent. I mistakenly got off the wrong floor once when I visited Marvel, and I can't remember exactly what the floors are. So if we say the eighth floor is editorial, ninth floor is merchandise and marketing, I got off on the ninth floor. That floor is so much nicer than where the editors have to reside. Like you walk in, this was back in the day, and there's like, you walk in the lobby and there's the big arcades. Like there's a Thanos Silver Surfer game. There was a Thor hammer in a glass case. It was really nice. And as soon as I walked through the elevator and into the lobby, I'm like, I'm in the wrong spot, because editorial, that floor was a crap hole.
Now, just to clear up some confusion, Aldous brings up a good point. And I think you guys are looking at two different time frames, possibly talking past each other. Go up one, please, Dojo.
All right.
Have you paid attention to what has happened to, or what Disney has done to the brand of Star Wars? And I think Rob wasn't addressing that. He was talking about the fact of selling, not what they did with it after the sale.
Because that would have bled over to continuity.
Yeah. I'm just talking. Look at all the Star Wars stuff we got. I'm not going to get any opinion on whether it's good or not, but look at all the Star Wars material we received after Lucas sold it to Disney. Because Lucas, you know, how long did it take for him to do 3 bad movies? You know, the Clone Wars and all that stuff. So and a cartoon.
I think Aldous brings up a good point. So you're trying to say that the corporations help keep a property alive, which dovetails into what I wanted to say before we go to your campaign. And then
I think he just won the argument for us.
But Aldous is saying what? But the danger in these corporations is they can take your beautiful creation of the original trilogy and turn it into absolute garbage.
Yes.
So the fact of a corporation alone is not good. It's just helpful. But if they go off the rails, then we have what Disney did.
No,
it's all
mainstream
bad.
Mainstream is definitely a double-edged sword when it comes to this kind of thing. I mean, even though they hold all the power, continuity, you know, gets all fucked up and everything. Even though they have the resources, you know, they can change up whatever they want on a dime. yeah, when it came to Jonathan Kent, I was not happy with what they did with that character. Rob, I think you have a little bit of what to say when it comes to John Kent and his role as Superman and the whole thing. And I think that's one place where mainstream can definitely take it back, is with continuity of our characters that we actually, hold some value to. It's not just, dollar signs on everything and, pandering to whatever, demographic that feels like left out or what have you. It's just, there's a point where it gets ridiculous, and we're seeing that take place now, which is why we're being able to, come up on the rise. And if they want to keep fucking up, I mean, it's just going to help us out more. But sooner or later, somebody in the indie comics is going to become that next Image, and when that happens, I hope he's looking around this big pool of creators and trying to tag some of us along.
If he or she is smart, yeah, because they're already seeing the creative pool that Marvel, DC, and Disney are,
right.
They're scooping up, and you're like, they're not people for superhero stories.
Yeah,
you have to like superheroes. You have to like the medium that you're writing and what you're working on, and you can see that they don't care. They don't even care in the slightest. It's just another project to them. It's just, hey, where's my check coming from this month? And it screams at. It's kind of funny. There's a podcast I listen to, and like 4 years ago, this guy that does a bunch of indie movies, he called it. He said Disney owning Star Wars and Marvel, he said there's not enough creative people to do all the stuff they want to do. He says he goes, look at how many, and this was just in the beginning where they had already gone through a couple of directors on one of the Star Wars projects. He goes, there's no way they can keep up the consistency, and you can see that. Look at what happens when you have one person in position at Disney / Marvel who ends up being a gatekeeper, where, hey, we want to push these agendas, we want to see these agendas in all the books, or it starts with the bad comic books and it ends up contaminating all the movies and TV stuff. And even Star Wars, you just like, what the hell happened? It's like you had a 2 barrels full of pure water and someone walked by and spilled some Kool-Aid mix in both, or you're just like, what are you guys doing now? Everything is Kool-Aid, and we like the water. I mean, that's a really bad metaphor or analogy, but
yeah.
He says, yeah.
Well, here's a question we should have touched on earlier: is if editorial is such an issue, why is the high watermark of Marvel directly associated with Jim Shooter and the precipitous fall occurring almost directly after his exit? In other words, if editorial, as you said, was getting in the way of creativity, and that's what makes indies better, then why was so much good Marvel in the high watermark attributed to the presence of a particular editor?
Well, it's because that's micromanagement and control. If you're a winner and you have a lot of great ideas, and you're controlling all these editors and these writers, and that's the problem. When you're winning, you're winning, and when you're losing, you're losing. If you've got a lot of great ideas and you have the will to push it, you're going to be a Jim Shooter, and you're going to, you might butt heads with writers, but you're also think of the control of you're hiring guys and you're telling editors to hire certain guys because you like, this guy does good stuff. You can really, from a comic book perspective, really tighten down the creative of let these guys do, because I always heard that he really let people do what they wanted within like a scope of stuff.
Okay.
It might be why we had such different stories back in that time too, because you had actually brought up that earlier when we were talking behind the scenes, that there was like kind of this cookie cutter format that was going through the system with the villain of the week kind of stuff, and but all the stories were interchangeable. The villains were all interchangeable, and but maybe that's why we just had such a diversity of stories back then. It's because he had more kitchens for cooks to be in.
Cool.
But we should bring up the campaign, and
that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Got me right there. I was gonna say, so what's so great about your campaign?
Let's find out, shall we?
Well, right now it's a sign up.
Great segue, guys.
But there is a video.
We nailed that one. Perfect timing.
Rob, would it be okay to play the video?
Oh, of course.
All right, let's do that.
It doesn't play.
No, I'm not ready.
I'm taking shots at the enemy. I'm gonna make it to the top, leave a legacy. If I got something to say, you better let me speak. Turn it up a new degree, bitch, you ain't seen anything. I pop off with the new rock, electronic, blow the sonic roof up. I'm too honest when I take a few shots. They're too toxic, need to take a new song. You cannot save me, cause I don't need saving. It's everything I've been chasing, all here for the taking. Don't wanna test your luck with me, I think I've had enough disease.
Nice. That's a hot trailer. I'll tell you what.
That is Jimmy Reyes. Jimmy Reyes.
Oh, nice.
Put that
Is he
together.
singing? Is that his voice?
No, that's I imagine wherever he gets some of the video effects from, that's probably like stock music that you can use, with no copyright.
Nice.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right,
the
so
book?
let's see what we have to look at here.
I'm all about cyberpunk books, man. So I'm already going to back this.
All right.
I mean, we got like cyberpunk with Wolverine claws going on. I mean, like, I don't think this can miss.
Yeah.
Well,
I like
you
my
know what?
cyberpunk in fiction, not in real life.
So I don't get sued.
I
They
am
are
both.
not Wolverine claws. What they are is they're plasma blades.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a
Okay.
difference.
Cool as fuck. That's what it is.
But there's obviously you can see there's even the influence in my artwork, but the influence in the character I came up with. I really, it's kind of funny, but I keep thinking back to Mark Begley on Justice League drew this splash of, I think it was Atomic Skull with the city behind him. And I remember thinking that Atomic Skull, just his skull and the flames. I'm like, this character, it's not Ghost Rider, but it's some kind of Ghost Rider looking character. I go, and also I worked on a Batman issue with Dr. Phosphorus, maybe.
Yeah,
I'm like,
he's the one who's on Green Fire. Yep.
Yeah, I was just like, the skull motif is such a strong. I mean, it immediately tells you a lot about what the character is or isn't. And I'm like, I don't know why these characters aren't used more. So when I was designing the character, and a lot of because of his backstory and his origin, I'm like, there's no way I can't do a skull for his his mask setup, and I just kind of went from there.
So then this character here is the one you're talking about. Obviously, this is the main protagonist.
Yep, yeah. That's Deth Raider. He's he's a Marine who his team gets ambushed. He gets pretty effed up. Just for his mobility, he has to build an armor, and him and the hot chick that's on the cover, they are on the run because everybody's after him, and at the same time, he needs to find out who ambushed his team, why did they do it, and obviously, sci-fi story as you uncover one mystery, there's 4 more mysteries, to work from. So that's pretty much
never escape the chain.
Yeah, exactly. So that's pretty much the concept, and it's obviously it's very superhero. I mean, I've been working in the superhero industry for 30 years, but I wanted it to be very vigilante superhero, but with a big sci-fi twist.
Just don't make the chain into something like Lost. Okay, just no more Lost. That's all.
No. I'm
It goes on forever.
well, that's why I have other ideas. So if I'm just like, okay, I'm out of stories here, I'll just be like, okay, well, let's do another book.
That's fantastic. I am super pumped. Like I said, I've said it a couple times now. A huge fan of yours while you're over in the mainstream. Great to have you here over in indie.
Yeah, no
I mean,
kidding.
I think we have only had a win because of that. Let me give my final thoughts, and then I got to GTFO because I got other stuff to do tonight. But you know, for myself, after collecting both mainstream and indie comics for, oh my god, it's been like 30 years now. And I've been an indie collector for 30 years now. I don't know if there is a direct comparison, like a 1v1 of what success looks like between the two. Some indie creators have gone on to like global fame and longevity from writing only a single book, like Moss by Art Spiegelman. That's something the mainstream required years of history and drama to have an iconic story to anchor a compelling graphic novel too, such as like The Death of Superman. Means nothing without everything that came before it, 80 years of what came before it. So the success stories for both, though, are out there, no matter where you want to pull them from. And they continue to stack up now as we keep moving forward. For the fan, there might not even be a side to be on. They simply want good stories accessible to them for the entertainment that they can have as shared interests. Ultimately, I think we will always be able to point to stories both the mainstream and indie bring into our lives that ignite passion within us. But when it comes to the indie creator, no matter where they are in the world, when they find success, it feels like the local kid making it big. To me, that makes indie books far more valuable and interesting than the mainstream.
Yeah. Yep. I
Sorry about that, Rob.
no, that's fine. I see all
How
of
rude!
that I couldn't do, or what I couldn't work on at Marvel and DC, and to be able to do pretty much anything I want in the indie, you know, like people are like, oh dude, you're doing, you know, you think Skull stuff is, you know, like you think this will sell, or you think Cyberpunk will, maybe this will sell, so you're just doing what you think people are going to like. No, I'm just doing stuff that I think is really cool and will make a fun story. And to be honest, what I wanted to draw, you know, especially a big part of my career was as an inker. So I have all these ideas and all these things I want to draw. And now I can just be like, oh yeah, dude, guess, you know, you want to draw a character like that? You can, you know,
Yeah, the thing I've heard repeatedly.
you.
Yeah, the thing I've heard repeatedly is if you make these comic books for yourself as a fan, you'll find that you have kindred spirits out there, and you will get the fan base.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's what the Stan Lee used to say.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is totally different, as we've talked about editorial in the mainstream, very different from the issue of, do you even have an editor to help you bring out the book that you think you're creating, you know, the book you want to bring out, and an editor come along as a second pair of eyes. It's very different from editorial in the mainstream getting in the way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I have
Absolutely.
my wife, who is a lot smarter than I am. So she's already I've already thrown it. Yeah, she named Deth Raider because it was just Raider, and I'm like, I can't do Raider. And you know, I need something in front of it. Otherwise there's the football team. I Googled Raider, you know, you Google Raider and the Tomb Raider stuff pops up, and I go, I gotta do something. I need something. She just kind of looked at me. She's like, what about Deth Raider? She goes, he's already, you know, she's looking at the drawing with the skull and stuff. She goes, you know, that really kind of speaks to the character, doesn't it? And I'm like, okay, that's a great idea. And I'm like, I will see you when I start writing the dialogue. She's like, oh, great. Fantastic. I go, well, you'll be co-writing this. She goes like, what do you mean I'll be co-writing this? And I'm like, I will write the dialogue, and then you will give it the English teacher style approach to it, and, you know, tweak it here and there. And between the two of us, and she's like, between the two of us, I'm on this project now. Oh, yes,
Sucker.
yeah. You didn't read the fine print on the marriage license?
Right. Well, listen, Rob, obviously the sign up page, I have the link to your campaign, your sign up in the description. Also in the description, I have your Twitter handle, which is @RobHunterArt. Is there anywhere else we can find you in the socials?
Well, there's my website, which is robhunterart.com, and Facebook. You can actually, do you remember when you could actually pick your name on Facebook?
Yeah.
So I'm the comic artist. So you could literally look me up on Facebook as the comic artist, or just Rob.
Yeah, nice.
And Instagram is also Rob Hunter Art. And you'll that's really because you only can add so much artwork to the sign up page, and everyone was going to see like some of the newest artwork and in better resolution from Instagram and Twitter. So anybody who's curious about, any of the images or even the new images I'll start putting out, because I've got to share the trading card, that exclusive trading card that people get with sign up and purchase. A buddy of mine goes, you actually haven't shown anybody that trading card artwork yet. She goes, it might be a good idea to show them. And I'm like, yeah, all right, I better finish that then so I can show it. So
another enticement to sign up. All right, great. Well, thank you so much once again, Rob, for being here. It was a pleasure to meet you and have you on the show. It was a fun debate, even though probably we were all on the same side, to be honest.
I think Jake and I, I think Jake and I are undefeated whenever we've teamed up. Just saying.
I'm actually surprised I actually held my own with you this time, Bendio.
We did it.
Go ahead.
Team effort.
And I'm still over here going, well, it depends. That's always the answer to a question in training and weightlifting and stuff, is like somebody asks you a simple one little variable question. You're like, well, it depends. There are 15 other variables.
Right. Nothing's never that simple. All right. Thank you, everyone, so much for being here live or watching us on the replay. And be sure to join us next week on Incendiary.